Imagine this. You're in your late 30s working at a comic book company and you're about to quit. You've been writing comics for almost 20 years, but you feel like you're just churning out the same stories over and over. It's boring. It's unfulfilling. You're done. Your wife says, before you quit, why don't you write one comic, the comic you want to write? What do you have to lose? So you do. You create superheroes that are flawed, that struggle with real problems, that feel human. And that one comic changes everything. His name was Stan Lee. And before he created Spider-Man, the X-Men, Iron Man, the Avengers, and basically built the Marvel Universe, he was ready to walk away from comics forever. But he didn't. He took one more shot. And that shot created a multi-billion-dollar empire that changed pop culture forever. Today, Marvel movies have made over $30 billion. Marvel characters are household names around the world. And it all started because Stan Lee decided to write the story he wanted to tell, not the story everyone else expected. Today, Lily and I are diving into Stan Lee's incredible journey and brainstorming a business idea inspired by his creativity that you can start today. Point. This is Tallie Talks. Let's get this show started.
She's got a mind, she's got a spark, lighting up dreams from dawn to dark. Tallie Talks, yeah, she's the voice, asking the questions, making the choice. Young hustlers rising, stories to tell, big ideas where passions dwell. Pull up a chair, grab your seat, let's talk the hustle, let's feel the beat. Tallie Talks, yeah, Tallie Talks, turning whispers into walks, dreaming big, take the shot. This is the place where dreams get called. Tallie Talks, oh, Tallie Talks, Tallie Talks, ooh, yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Season 2 of Tallie Talks. I'm Tallie Pennyworth, and we are 9 episodes into this epic season.
Last week, we talked about Ruth Handler, the woman who created Barbie and showed girls they could be anything they wanted.
And we learned that observation leads to innovation, and that representation matters. So Lily, welcome back.
Thanks, Tallie. I'm so excited about today's episode because Stan Lee is a legend. The Marvel Universe is everywhere.
Right? Like every other movie coming out is a Marvel movie. It's insane how big Marvel has become.
And it all started with Stan Lee's vision.
Okay, quick question before we dive in. Who's your favorite Marvel superhero?
Ooh, that's hard. I think Black Widow. She doesn't have superpowers, but she's smart, strategic, and tough. I love that.
Great choice. I'm a Spider-Man girl. I love that he's just a regular kid dealing with regular problems, but he's also a superhero.
And that's exactly what Stan Lee created. Superheroes who felt real.
Let's talk about how he did it.
So Stan Lee was born Stanley Martin Lieber in 1922 in New York City. His parents were Romanian Jewish immigrants, and they struggled financially, especially during the Great Depression.
So he grew up with very little money.
Right. But Stan loved stories, books, movies, radio shows, anything with adventure and imagination. He dreamed of becoming a great writer, maybe writing novels or plays. But when he was 17, he needed a job, and his uncle helped him get an entry-level position at a small comic book company called Timely Comics.
So he starts at the bottom.
Exactly. His job was basically to get coffee, erase pencil marks from finished pages, and do whatever the editors needed. But Stan was ambitious. He started writing small text pieces for the comics, then full stories, and he was good at it.
So he worked his way up.
He did. And because he wanted to save his real name, Stanley Lieber, for serious writing like novels, he used the pen name Stan Lee. He thought comics were just a stepping stone to something more respectable.
So he didn't even take comics seriously at first.
Not really. But by the time he was 19, Stan became the editor-in-chief of Timely Comics, which would eventually become Marvel Comics. He was in charge of the whole operation.
19, das ist so jung.
It is. But here's the thing. For almost 20 years, Stan wrote formulaic superhero stories. The company told him what to write, and he wrote it. Superman was popular, so they wanted Superman clones. Batman was popular, so they wanted Batman clones. Stan was successful, but he felt empty.
So he was good at his job but not fulfilled.
Exactly. And by the late 1950s, Stan was 38 years old and ready to quit. He told his wife Joan, "I'm done with comics. I want to do something meaningful."
So what changed his mind?
His wife Joan said something brilliant. She said, "Before you quit, why don't you write one comic the way you want to write it? Create characters you believe in. What do you have to lose? You're quitting anyway."
That's such good advice.
It was. And at the same time, Stan's publisher said, "DC Comics just launched a superhero team called the Justice League, and it's doing really well. We need our own superhero team."
So Stan had an assignment, but also permission to do it his way.
Exactly. So Stan thought, what if I create superheroes that are different? What if they're not perfect? What if they have real problems, money problems, relationship problems, self-doubt? What if they argue with each other?
So he wanted to make them feel like real people.
Yes. And in 1961, Stan Lee and artist Jack Kirby created the Fantastic Four, and it was revolutionary.
Come va?
Because these superheroes weren't perfect gods. Reed Richards was brilliant but arrogant. The Thing was strong but insecure about his appearance. Sue Storm struggled to be taken seriously. Johnny Storm was impulsive and reckless. They bickered. They had real emotions. And readers loved it.
Because they could relate to them.
Exactly. The Fantastic Four became a huge hit, and Stan realized he'd found something special, so he kept going.
Okay, so Fantastic Four is a hit. What happens next?
Stan goes on a creative tear. In 1962, he creates Spider-Man with artist Steve Ditko. Peter Parker is a nerdy teenager who gets bullied, worries about money, and struggles with responsibility. Nobody had ever made a teenage superhero the main character before. Teens were always just sidekicks.
But Spider-Man became one of the most popular superheroes ever.
He did. Then Stan creates the Hulk, a scientist who can't control his anger. Iron Man, a billionaire with a damaged heart. Thor, a god who has to prove he's worthy. The X-Men, mutants who are feared and hated just for being different.
So many iconic characters.
And here's what's brilliant. Each character represented something real. The X-Men were about discrimination and prejudice. Spider-Man was about responsibility and growing up. The Hulk was about anger and control. Stan was using superheroes to explore real human issues.
That's so smart. So the stories had depth.
Exactly. And Stan created this sense of community. He wrote letters to fans in the comics, calling them true believers. He made Marvel feel like a club you belong to. He had a slogan, Excelsior, which means ever upward.
So he built a whole culture around Marvel.
He did. And by the late 1960s, Marvel was outselling DC Comics. Stan Lee had saved the company and revolutionized the entire industry.
That's incredible.
And the legacy grew. Marvel movies started in the 2000s, and now they're the biggest film franchise in history. Characters Stan created, Iron Man, Captain America, Black Panther, Spider-Man, are cultural icons. Stan Lee even had cameos in almost every Marvel movie. Stan Lee died in 2018 at age 95, but his impact is everywhere. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has made over $30 billion. Marvel characters are beloved by billions of people around the world. Comic books are now considered legitimate literature and art.
And it all started because Stan decided to write one comic his way.
Exactly. And here's what I love most about Stan's story. He showed that your work can have meaning and still be entertaining. People said comics were just for kids, just silly stories. But Stan proved that comics could explore important themes, identity, responsibility, prejudice, power, while still being fun and exciting.
So you don't have to choose between meaningful and entertaining.
Right. And Stan always believed in heroes. He said, "With great power comes great responsibility." That wasn't just a Spider-Man quote, that was his life philosophy. He believed that if you have a platform, you should use it to make the world better.
That's beautiful. Quick reminder, if you're loving these stories about creative geniuses who change the world, you need to watch Blueprints of Power, the podcast my co-host Lily does with Jack and Charlie. They explore the greatest empires in history with humor and insight. Did you know the Ottoman Empire lasted over 600 years and spanned 3 continents? It's one of the longest-lasting empires ever. The entire first season is on YouTube right now. Go subscribe, binge all the episodes, and let them know Tallie sent you. That's Blueprints of Power on YouTube. You're going to love it. All right, we're back. Lily, what's the big lesson from Stan Lee's story?
The lesson is create the work you believe in, not the work you think you're supposed to create. Stan spent 20 years writing formulaic comics, but he only found success and fulfillment when he wrote the stories he actually cared about.
So it's like authenticity beats formula every time.
Exactly. And here's the other lesson. Flaws make things relatable. Stan's superheroes weren't perfect. They struggled, they failed, they had doubts. And that's what made people love them. Perfection is boring. Humanity is interesting.
I love that. So don't try to be perfect, be real.
Yes. And one more thing. Build community around your work. Stan didn't just create characters, he created a culture. He made fans feel like they were part of something special. That's powerful.
So, create what you believe in. Make your work relatable by showing flaws and humanity. And build community around what you create.
Perfect. Excelsior.
All right, time for the kid business brainstorm. What business can kids start inspired by Stan Lee?
Okay, so Stan was all about storytelling and creating characters people could relate to, right? He built entire worlds through comics.
Right? So what if kids started a custom comic and story creation business?
Yes, I love this. Okay, so here's the idea. You create custom comics or illustrated stories for people. These could be personalized stories where the customer is the hero, or original stories you write and illustrate yourself.
Ooh, give me examples.
So maybe parents want a custom comic book for their child's birthday? You create a 10-page comic where their kid is the superhero who saves the day. You include details about them, their interests, their friends, their pet, and draw them as the main character.
That's so cool. Every kid would love to be a superhero in their own comic.
Exactly. Or maybe you create original comic series that you sell. Like you write and draw a 5-issue comic about a group of kid detectives, or superhero siblings, or time-traveling friends. You sell them at school, online, at craft fairs.
Or you could do custom family comics. Like someone hires you to create a comic about their family's vacation or a funny family story.
Yes. Or educational comics. You team up with teachers and create comics that teach history, science, or math concepts in a fun, engaging way.
Ooh, like The Adventures of Algebra Girl or Captain Chemistry.
Exactly. And here's what Stan Lee would love about this. You're making stories accessible and relatable. Comics can reach people who don't like reading traditional books. You're opening doors to storytelling.
So how would you start this business?
First, practice your skills. You don't have to be an amazing artist. Stan Lee wasn't the artist, he was the writer. You could write stories and partner with a friend who draws, or you could create simple, stylized art. Stick figures can tell great stories if the plot is good.
That's a good point. The story matters more than perfect art.
Exactly. Then create some sample comics to show what you can do. Maybe make a 5-page comic about yourself, or your pet, or a made-up character. Build a portfolio.
Then you market your service. You could post on social media, make flyers for schools and libraries, or set up at local markets. Offer custom comics for birthdays, holidays, special occasions.
Yes, and you could have different packages, like a 1-page comic strip for $10, a 5-page mini comic for $30, a full 10-page custom comic book for $60, different options for different budgets.
And you could serialize your original stories, like Stan Lee did with Marvel Comics. Create a superhero or character and release new issues monthly. People could subscribe.
That's brilliant. You could build anticipation. What happens next? People would come back month after month.
And what would kids learn from this business?
Storytelling, visual communication, character development, writing, drawing, customer service, marketing, and how to meet deadlines. Stan Lee had to produce comics on tight deadlines for decades. That teaches discipline and time management.
Plus, you're learning that you don't have to be perfect to start. Stan wasn't a trained artist. He found collaborators and focused on what he was good at, story.
Exactly, and you could scale this. Maybe you start solo, but then you build a team. One person writes, another draws, another colors. You create your own little Marvel comics.
I love it. So the business is custom comic and story creation. Write and illustrate personalized comics or original series. Make stories relatable and fun. Build community around your characters. And remember, story matters more than perfect art.
And remember Stan's lesson. Create what you believe in. Don't copy what everyone else is doing. Make stories that matter to you because that's when the magic happens.
Perfect. Okay, who's going to start a custom comic and story creation business? Send us your comics. All right, everyone, that's episode 9 of season 2. We explored Stan Lee's inspiring journey, from almost quitting comics to creating the Marvel Universe and changing pop culture forever.
Lesson. Create what you believe in, not what you think you're supposed to create. Make your work relatable by showing flaws and humanity, and build community around what you create.
And our kid business idea, custom comic and story creation. Write and illustrate personalized comics or original series. Make storytelling accessible, and remember that story matters more than perfect art.
Next week, we're talking about Estee Lauder, the woman who built a cosmetics empire by giving away free samples and understanding that personal touch matters more than big advertising budgets. Her story is incredible.
I'm so excited. Thanks for being here, Lily.
Thanks, Tallie. Only one more episode after next week.
And thank you for listening. If you loved this episode, share it, rate it, review it, and send us your comic creations. We want to see what you make.
Because you have stories worth telling. Excelsior!
See you next time on Tallie Talks. Peace out.